Good morning, everybody, man. Happy Tuesday. Good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. Back today with another AI episode. The crypto markets are ripping. Bitcoin's ripping. Hype is ripping. Agents, I think, are on a comeback. I'm excited for this conversation. Adam, what is good, man? We got the video working for the spaces on the video.
You know what it was? VPNs, man. VPNs are always the issue, man. Figured it out though. Restarted the phone, and yeah, we're good to go, man. Vibes feel good on the timeline, man. It feels like, while we may not be, back full bull, people are definitely feeling vibey on the timeline. Definitely feel it.
Yeah, altcoins are back. I think once ETH goes back past 3K, man, we might see every TGE that's been holding off for a year coming out, man. I'm excited
let's talk about that one. What was the one? What was it? Not Prime. What was it called? $500 million valuation.
Are you talking about your favorite project, Prompt?
No, not Prompt. What was it called? But it just Plasma sold out. Another P. Sold out in 2 seconds, and it's got that little bit of ICO season 2, which we've been talking about for 8 months. That vibe is here. It feels like this is going to be the shift away from meme coins, which we've been talking about for 8 months, and it just feels like it's upon us right now. That now's the time.
The intelligence cycle, maybe 10 to 15% loaded. But, speaking of ICOs and token sales, actually how I came across Think Agents when they had a successful NFT mint. It was like a month or two ago, 2022 NFTs, I believe. And I looked into it and I was like, what is this crazy thing that people are so hyped about? So we do have two of the core contributors on stage, Jesse and Mike. I'd love to introduce, and I'm actually really excited to have this conversation to learn more about the project, as well as networking with fellow AI builders in the space. So I'll start off with Jesse, who I was DMing with. Man, thank you for coming on, man.
Absolutely, thanks for having us.
Yeah, appreciate it. How about Mikey, man? What's good, GM?
Hey, so stoked to be here. I was just on the phone with one of our team members who was just like, oh yeah, these guys with Emblem Vault, they're doing some cool stuff. And so, people are already stoked about us talking today.
Yeah, man. Emblems are not for a little while, since 2016, but we built our Agent Hustle product towards the end of last year during the crazy kind of AI meme coin space. But we've kind of built it towards this DeFi AI protocol. And I wasn't really into the AI space as much, but after building this, man, I've been completely radicalized that AI is just going to take over everything. And I'm really excited. So maybe we'll start off with Jesse. I'd love to learn about, both of your guys' backstory. I think Agent actually is quite a unique protocol, which we'll dive into, but I think both your stories plays a pivotal role in understanding, your guys' creation.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I really came up through marketing, branding, media side. So back in the day, I used to tour with bands, do live visuals. Then I was over at the Red Bull Music Academy. I was the director of media over there. And before this project, I actually started and ran an agency in Seattle called Belief Agency for 13 years before I sold that. And Mike and I started a bunch of companies together. He was actually running, Mike and I have known each other for 20 years or something crazy. And we started the agency together. Mike was actually running an incubator at the time. And I was kind of the Web3 guy and he was the AI guy. Right. And we were talking about, we both had a couple, exits, and we were talking about like, what do we want to do? And it all just kept coming back to, how do you help people own their intelligence? And, as far as like, what could you spend the next 10 years working on? It's the intersection of blockchain and AI is really what was interesting to us. And that kind of kicked us off towards this journey.
And Mike, you're on the homepage of the Think Agents. So you gave me a quick 3-minute tutorial when I came across it about everything. Sounds like you have thought about this very deeply of what you guys are building.
Oh yeah, totally. So like Jesse said, like we've known each other basically since we were kids at this point in time. And, we survived through startup after startup, and we got to help some of the best big tech companies in the world, but really saw I started working in AI in 2017. We kind of built the first way to be able to take something off a data science workbench and then deploy it to cloud scale. So like the United Nations were customers, British government, Nike, Toyota, Merck. And so I kind of started to see this early days of where AI was going, how much it's being embedded in just the foundational infrastructure of our world, and how much I just disagree with the way that we don't value individual liberties. And we're not building the system around people, we're building it around corporations. And we are basically farming ourselves. And so in the process of saying, okay, how do we build this thing? We say, how do we actually design AI agents in which you don't need external legal oversight for them, but you actually have designed the thing from core first principles so that the user owns it, they own their data, they can speak freely, they can transact freely, and they can kind of do all the things that at least as Americans, we say like, these are our civil liberties, this is what we allow ourselves to do. We wanted to make sure that people still have the ability in the intelligence age, when their brains are slower than the brains of their swarm of agents. We wanted everybody to be able to continue to own their intelligence. And so that's how we got here.
Yeah, it is actually quite unique. I mean, you're definitely, I guess the brains behind it. As I'm looking through your profile, it says that you guys have also created the Independent AI Institute. We will be diving into Think Agents, which is built around this kind of like open source, decentralized, own your own intelligence. But how does the AI Institute play a role within, I guess, your guys' whole ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, the Institute's how we got here. So if you remember to about a year ago, everybody was talking about inference and GPU compute and how important it is. And like, we completely agree that it's really important. And the challenge is that in order to solve compute, you have to get down to the user level. And so, and to get down to the user level, you have to standardize a whole bunch of things. A year ago, agents, there wasn't really a concept of agents, and the agents couldn't talk to each other very much. But about a year ago, right now,
Hey,
we're
Mike,
running
can I say something real
Yeah.
quick? So let me set this up for Mike, because like Mike's probably not going to mention like how small this was. So you guys have to understand that really about a year and a half ago was the first time you got all the decentralized AI people together, and there was what, 50 people there, Mike?
Something
Maybe
like
2
that,
years
yeah.
ago, something like that. So when we first started working on this stuff, there was no, it would almost be like starting a town and there's no streets, there's no plumbing, no electricity, so there were no standards. So the first thing we had to do, and Mike's built coalitions like this before, right? And so it was the first thing we had to do is we saw all these people from the Morpheus team and Venice and all these other folks now that have launched and are killing it, and it was like no one was talking to each other. We didn't have shared standards. So it was like before we can even build our product, we first have to get shared standards and build an industry, right? And so the Independent AI Institute, I think it has over 80 companies now and organizations that are all agreeing to use the same standards so that everything can talk to each other so that it can be interoperable, right? And so it's just hard to think, like it's hard to look at AI right now and remember what it was like 2 years ago, especially on the decentralized side, when it was literally like in Austin, 50 people in a room going like, is it even possible to decentralize AI? Right. And so that's where that kind of came up. So just want to set that up for you, Mike.
Yeah, and then the result of it was, that whole industry, everybody's trying to solve problems, but they realize they can't solve them all. And so when you're David going up against Goliath, you say like, well, what do we have? It's like, well, we have each other and we have shared values. So what if we design the intersection between our two offerings or two protocols? What if we standardize that so that we can actually plug them in together? And the cool thing is like, as we've been doing that, we actually we had 9 companies, I think, together a year ago, having AI agents play Street Fighter 3 against each other. We got a bunch of communities and like tens of thousands of people watch, and we're kind of able to just demonstrate like, look, interoperability can make all of these different Web3 projects work together and create the same or better experience than what you could do centralized. And since then, like you've seen things like MCP and A2A, all these standards come out from the Web 2 world. And the Web 3 world basically was already there, started using things that looked almost the same. And now we're at the spot where we're able to, onboard, because we've been building these in a componentized way. We can onboard all those Web 2 tools into the Web 3 world. And now we're at a spot where I really look at this and I'm like, we've got a shot at winning the overall market here, because man, centralized systems, like if you look at how negative people were about Apple yesterday or whatever, right? Like it's really hard when you're the centralized planner to actually like stay ahead, make the right decisions, keep everybody on board. But when you have thousands of us all building and connecting, and like that's how the best stuff always arises.
And everything we're doing is open source and all that kind of good stuff too. So if anybody's even listening in this space right now and goes, I want to help, it's like, grab a shovel, get to work.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. It's really the ethos of crypto, and it's kind of the way that we go about Emblem Vault as well, and how we're building with Agent Hustle, which we'll dive into. Actually, I have a few people already asking questions, but I'll present those in a little bit. So you guys came on the scene, at least from my perspective, when there was this gigantic mint for the NFTs that sold out pretty quickly. So congratulations on that. But what caught my attention was that you guys labeled them as NFIs. It was like non-fungible
intelligence.
So it's you creating your own standard of agents and intertwining it with tokenization.
Well, that came from a deal that we made with Futureverse. Are you familiar with Futureverse at all?
I'm not.
Got it. Mike, do you want to kind of talk about like our partnership with Futureverse on that stuff?
Yeah, so there's a company called Futureverse that was like from the last bull market, it was like 14 companies came together, and they merged to they merged to be successful in the next set. They basically have like all the IP behind Ready Player One. They've got an interoperable metaverse. They've got a bunch of these things, but one of the things that happened in that merger is their core, like kind of the core AI people who are like really top notch, ended up not staying with the project. And so there was just this great kind of foundational groundwork and a community that had been thinking about this idea of owning your own intelligence. And so when we started talking with them about these standards, they were basically like, hey, like, we've done all this work, we've got all these pieces, and these agents can actually even operate in like a, you know, tier 1 game environment, and we've got all these pieces lined up. And so as we started looking at it, we said, all right, like, this actually makes sense. Like, like, we were going to ask you to provide these standards anyways to the Independent AI Institute. What if we just pull these things together? So they had it's always smart to trademark things and then open source them, so that you make sure that everybody can kind of like be underneath a protected cover, so that like Microsoft or whoever can't come snipe you. And so as part of that, like, the Think Agent protocol got patents on things like words non-fungible intelligence, the process of agents being able to be tokenized and transacting value. There's just a whole bunch of things that end up having like complete legal protection as well. And so we were happy to integrate that into these standards.
Interesting. So I have it here pulled up on a live stream. We're live streaming, by the way. That's why we're all talking through my mic. I see the OpenSea collection. The floor is 0.3 ETH, 104 ETH in total volume, and about 800 owners. It's labeled as a Think Agent bundle, and they all have the same image. Could you go ahead and describe to us kind of what this is? If I was going to buy it, what does it come with, and the future capabilities of where you guys are taking this?
Jesse, you want to talk to those details?
Yeah, sure. So it's a Think Agent bundle because in essence you get your non-fungible intelligence, which is almost like your agent, right? But you also get a tranche of tokens. So our tokens, we have our TG coming up, and in essence, if you have those tokens will be used for things like, upgrading your agent. So like, if for instance, if Mike has this amazing, whatever accountant agent, and I want to use it, I can use Think tokens to use his agent, and then he can get paid that way. So all of our agents are all interoperable and can pay each other and all that kind of good stuff. And so the token for that is called Think. And so if you want to buy an agent or upgrade an agent, and then eventually store memories, you're going to need the Think token. And so when you bought this bundle, you not only got the agent, but you also got the tokens you need to run the agent.
Interesting. Yeah, so I see here for Think benefits, professional agents, the fuel adaptive AI entities that are interoperable, own your own experience, and the patent protection from trolls, which you had just described there. When I open up the documentation, I was looking at it earlier, I see that you guys have MCP integrations, tool integrations, and a handful of different models that you're using. I'll start with kind of the models, because I'm curious on the technical level how this is working. Mike, I did see yesterday that you posted that you guys are using Venice under the hood. And
yeah, they're one of our. We have quite a few partners. Venice is one of our biggest partners.
Yeah, that seems to be right in tune with where you guys are going with this being open source, store your privacy, decentralized in nature. How has that experience been partnering with Venice and using them as this kind of private model?
We've loved Venice. Like, as far as like leaders of a movement, like Eric Voorhees is just one of a kind. He's he was an early Bitcoin adopter. He started the first kind of like private anonymous DEX called Shapeshift, and it's like he was just speaking at the SEC, I believe, yesterday, just on what we're all doing, and they launched Venice, and immediately as Venice was coming together, I met all those folks because I've known one of the engineers for about 15 years there, and then their CTO is literally like 3 blocks from our office. So it's just kind of like we're running in the same circles.
I mean, you guys remember when I said
values.
There was like a group of like 50 people? Like, the Venice guys were there, the Morpheus guys were there. Like, if you look at the people now that are launching products, these were all the folks that were hanging out in Austin a couple of years ago going, how do we pull this off?
And so the way that like Think is trying to stay Think is like a constitution for how AI agents can work with each other, but it's also got the incentive system that's kind of designed almost to work like the human dopamine system for and I can get into those details on what I mean by that. But we've essentially incubated the first like agent browser. You can think about it like how Netscape was the first public kind of common way to access the internet, and it was open source, and it was composable and it was open. You can kind of think about what has been incubated on top of Think Agents as being like the first browser. And so you've got a project called Souls, SOU.ls, and Souls is like an agentic browser. And so you can log in with your Think Agent. All of your information is on your local machine. You don't have to trust anybody. It's all encrypted with your keys. Your agent has your wallet. And so you can access then local compute if you've got the right kind of computer. So you don't even have to go to Venice if you don't want to. But if you do want to, Venice is the default, and we've got a load of credits there so that most people will probably be able to operate on it for free. And that should grow over time as the network expands. And so you can actually even connect into Claude and OpenAI. Like, that's the cool thing about Souls, is we're building all these things so that you can connect the pieces, almost like a synthesizer for AI.
Tell me, like, just from like a high. Or sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I say, Jake, I just DM'd you this week's podcast, and so every week on the podcast we demo it. If you go 18 minutes in, you can see Souls working with our CTO kind of walking through it. And this week we added a bunch of really cool stuff. Where in essence, you can take different tools on Hugging Face and plug them directly in now to Souls as well. So if you want to actually go check it out, it's about 18 minutes in. And every week we do, so on Thursdays we do a builder session where we get a group of builders together. We usually have around 50 builders in the community all working together. And then we go from there into a spaces, and then we go from there into a podcast. So every week we're showing everything that we're building as well, if anybody wants to see it.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. I know Adam has a question. I'll just play on the background for anyone who's watching.
By the way, I'm speaking through Jake's mic here, but I'm being on stage, but because we're doing the live stream at the same time. But my question is kind of just like on a high level to just somebody who's not kind of familiar with all this stuff. How you guys are looking at like ownership of the agent itself. And you said like you can run the agent locally on your local machine, but then what happens when I sell the agent as an NFT, or how does that even work? How does ownership of an agent happen through the NFT? Like, what's actually contained in that NFT that like lives on if I was to transfer it to somebody else, or how you guys are kind of approaching that?
Yeah, so the Think standard, kind of like how okay, so there's the thing called the HTTP standard, and that's how the internet works, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And it's a way to be able for a user to be able to type in an address that oftentimes ends in a .com, and then the internet knows how to direct that user to a server that shows the thing, right? So you have essentially, you've got a domain name, you've got a server, and then you've got a browser. And the Think agent protocol is designed very similarly, where you have a mind, soul, and a body. So the soul is essentially an NFT. It's NFT 1155. It represents your agent. It has your agent's wallet. Anything that you authorize with it, right? So it's a standard for being able to authorize, for being able to use different tools, for being able to spend money, to be able to transact, to be able to sign and encrypt messages. So that's the soul. And then the mind is a server. And so we incubated the first server in that product called Souls, that runs on your computer, and you can use that. And then there's the body, and the body is the user interface. So Souls also acts as one body, but you're also set up then to be able to take and have a body that's actually 3D assets for operating in a video game environment, or assets to be compiled into an application. And so you can really think about these agents as being like a bundled website. And so if you were around in the early 90s and you could have gotten one of the first 2022 websites, and you were in a spot where, you got the one that had the name you want, you've got the traffic, and you've got kind of the right data and products in place, you're in a really good position. And you can kind of think about it the same way, as we're building a network of agents that can all transact value. And we've got some really great world-class builders, like the guy who's behind the product guy behind Cash App. We've got one of the biggest Epic / Fortnite video game developers is going to be incubating on top of it. And this is kind of just what you can expect, is to be alongside a whole bunch of builders who are building out this new world.
Yeah. And Jake, I would look at like the stuff you guys are looking at right now. You know, it's almost like I said, it's almost like a portal to the decentralized agentic web. So you know, for most people that aren't engineers, you hear about all this great stuff happening in decentralized AI, and you're like, cool, how do I use it? And it's like, well, you can't unless you're an engineer, right? So in essence, we put a UX on top of that so that everything plugs into there. So if you want to use Morpheus, if you want to use Venice, you just, you know, one click add, and all of a sudden you have access to that. And everything that John is running right there in that simulation you're looking at, or no, in the actual like live demo you're watching, all that data is being stored to his actual device. So it's not going anywhere.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you own your own data.
So how do you guys deal then with, I guess, A2A, so agent to agent, you know, interactions or MCPs? Let's say, you know, we want to take Agent Hustle and, you know, try to plug him into your ecosystem or have him interact with any of the 2022 agents that are being created through the NFTs and their, you know, their soul, body, and mind. What is like the process for that?
Well, so there's different levels, right? There's non-permissioned. So from a non-permissioned standpoint, you can set up your agent just as an MCP, and our agent will be able to use it immediately, right? It would just call that MCP. It could even discover that MCP through a couple different MCP discovery tools that are built into Souls. Next up, if you wanted to actually charge for something, that can be a blockchain transaction that authorizes that, and then you know, and it works essentially just like any Web3 application that uses your wallet as your sign-on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. So I'm kind of just conceptualizing all of it. It reminds me a lot of the like projects that were popping up, like IP projects that were popping up in 2021, 2022 as NFTs, right? Where it's like, hey, if you own this NFT, you own the IP to it. Therefore, you could go ahead and, you know, make a movie out of it. You can, you know, create a fast food restaurant, which a few people did, and go on and so forth. But this is kind of taking it, you know, the next level to where you own this NFT. This NFT then holds the agent that allows you to run locally, and then uses, you know, your guys' different models that you guys have partnered with to then go ahead and build it in a different type of way. Could you give us some examples?
Yeah, it's your user account, Jake. I mean, I would just think about it just for like normal, you know, it's just like, oh, this is your user account. Now, if you want to build it up and sell it, you can, you know, but you know, it's up to the person.
So far since you've launched a few months ago, you know, what type of conversations are being held in your community in terms of how they want to go about utilizing their Think agents, or at least like what's most popular?
You should know we've been working on this for years. So like we just did the NFT, but we've been working on building the coalition and everything for years. So this isn't like a new thing that we're doing. Yeah.
Got it.
I mean, we have partnerships already with like, you know, Yuga, Futureverse. Like if you go look at who's in the Independent AI Institute, it's pretty much everybody in Independent AI. So it's like I said, it's hard. It's almost like saying like, cool, we want to launch a school in a town that doesn't exist. What do you got to do first? Well, you got to cut down trees. You got to build the town. You got to get shared standards. So like we've been at it for 2 years, trying to get like the industry to all agree on standards so that we can get to the point we're at now, which is sell the NFT so that people can own their own intelligence. And then we have our incubator. We're also building on top of that, which has 3 companies we're incubating that are backed by folks like, we have a partnership with Render, if you guys are familiar with Render.
Yep.
Right. And so
there's like several $100,000 being already that have been committed by partners to incubating these projects, and there's new VCs that we're just starting to talk to come in. So one of the things we're doing for our builders is we're making sure that they have the support of like a veteran team where everybody's got like at least a dozen years of startup experience. Me, Jesse, John Clem, Felix, a whole bunch of people. And then we're organizing so that they can get the resources they need, because we're actually building AI that's competitive with closed source. And that's a, you know, multi-billion dollar competitors that we're going up against in just about every vertical. And so like we're attacking this like we're building the standards, we're building the best in class browser, and then we're incubating and bringing together kind of all the technical know-how to be able to incubate a ton of projects. And so I think we already have at least 30 builders building on top of this.
It's really cool.
And then even like on the NFT side, like the NFTs you guys are looking at, that's kind of like the founders mint, where people get to get in early. It's really the ability for them to buy the token before anyone else, right? But keep in mind, like we also already have contracts with other big players in the space where we've sold between 10 and 15,000 more agents that are just standard agents. So we're pretty far down the line. And the cool thing is we also have really great deals with folks like MeBits. If you guys are familiar with MeBits, awesome team. We have a deal with you know, like, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff going on, which is really cool. And so the folks that are just now seeing what we're doing with the NFT thing, what's really cool about this space is I think it's the first time we've really gotten to go like, hey, zoom out a little bit. Like, it's not about the NFT. Go back, go look at the institute, go look at the shared standards, go read the white papers, go look at the incubator. It's called the Thinkubator. It was cool. The Ape Chain guys actually named that for us, which is pretty funny. Our deals with Render and different folks like that, like, this is a pretty big effort. If you're a fan of Venice and what they're building, the cool thing is what Venice is building is massive for the space, but there's a lot of stuff that they want to see exist that's not really what they want to build, and we're building a lot of that stuff. And so if you kind of look at it from almost from an ecosystem perspective, you'll start to see how like, oh, I see how Venice clicks in here. I see how Morpheus clicks in here. I can now see that like this actually fills in the gaps of the stuff that Venice wants on the persona side, right? And the goal is that you take all these decentralized pieces of infrastructure and connect them together so that you can actually take on an open AI or some of these massive giants. But the only way we can do it kind of the decentralized world is to get everyone to work together and to share and to open source and to make sure everything talks to each other so that you can kind of Voltron together a solution that could compete against these giants that want to, in essence, copy you and, take your data and make you obsolete.
That makes sense. So just to add some additive descriptions to how think agents work, from the white paper says the soul is the NFI, right? So the NFT that establishes agent identity and authentication. The mind is the decentralized application layer that processes the information and manages agent behavior. And then the body is an interface layer that enables the environmental interaction and adaptation. So the soul is just the NFT. You have two other parts that are the larger ecosystem, as you're explaining. But going a little bit deeper, since you have been building it a few years, how does the community approach this? Obviously, now that you've entered crypto, there's the traders, right, who just want kind of number go up, but like the actual product users themselves, what type of conversations are they having of how they intend to use it, or how is it being, utilized in the most popular way?
What's difficult about it is literally every kind of community member, customer we talk to wants to do something different with it. Right. And so that's why we're talking about it more like a browser, where if you want to add a bunch of MCPs that you like, great, you can add them. If you want to add, like if you go look at the thing that John launched that, it's in the demo this week, where all of a sudden, what's that new thing Hugging Face is doing, Mike? Space the name of it.
They're called Graphios, and it's basically a way for your agent to be able to take any single model on Hugging Face and be able to use it as a tool without permission and automatically.
And so he integrated those this week, right? Which is pretty dope. So it's almost like, well, what can you do with a web browser, right? Well, somebody's going to use it to launch a shoe company. Somebody's going to use it to, I don't know, sell therapy. Somebody's going to use it to do fitness stuff. So that's the difficulty, is when we're talking to folks, everybody's approaching like how they want to use intelligence from wherever they're at. So we have folks in the community. One of them is a psychologist and wants to use it for like helping run his business. We have other folks that are like gamers. We have other folks that are like, hey, I want to use it to help me like, book travel and stuff, right? And so that's why it has to be as flexible as it is, where you can go like, cool, like the other day I was using Souls and I was like, I wanted to have it analyze a PDF. Well, all of a sudden it said, I don't have the capabilities, but I found an MCP that does that. Would you like me to install it? And I said, yes, right? And so I'm building my own agent based off of my own patterns, but that's going to be different than what Mike's doing. That's why it has to connect to all these other open source interoperable tools, so you can kind of build it out.
It's making everything that the engineers have access to today, and they can get around using terminal, and they can install things from GitHub and Hugging Face, and it's making it available to all the subject matter experts in the world, or all the passionate people who care about a niche subject. And it makes it easy for people to like play, vibe code, and there's the community there of support. So we're expecting kind of like the early internet to see people get on and be like, hey, I think the radio might work here. Hey, I think this might work there. And the cool thing is like Agent. I'm sorry that I don't remember the name right now. Agent Hustle.
Agent Hustle.
Agent Hustle would totally be capable of attaching to an NFI, and now that agent is part of the ecosystem.
It's interesting. Very much early internet vibes, where it's like, oh, we're looking to build it, bring in builders, but my kind of brain always goes to like, just general users and how are they going to use this stuff. And part of my current thesis is that people are going to have like individual AI agents as their kind of like interface to the web, or their protectors, if you will. That's my view. I'd love to have your view. Do you feel the same way?
No, I completely agree with you. So the way that, if you were to say, boil this down, here's our three main value props. First one is you own it, right? That's huge. So for instance, when I use Souls, all that data stays on my device, which is okay. So you own it. The second one is evolves every day, because we connect to any of the open source MCPs out there. And now I keep spacing the name. What do you call them, Mike? The ones that John just added.
Just call them a tool.
Okay, Graphy or whatever they're called, right? Because we keep adding in tools like that. So the first thing is you own it. The second thing is it evolves every day, right? So every time these open source tools are getting updated, Souls is getting updated. And the third one is it's personalized. And that's the last thing we're going to build, which means in essence, you get to choose how your Jarvis looks. So that's why we have deals in place with folks like Meebits, which are being super generous and saying that not only if you don't have a Meebit, they're actually giving us some Meebits that we can use. So you can, in essence, if you want to skin your agent to be a Meebit, you can talk to it. If you want it to be your ape, if you want it to be, you name it, right? We have deals with a lot of folks out there, so you can, in essence, make it look the way you want. So, you own the data, it evolves every day, and you personalize it. If you were to make that even smaller, what's kind of the main thing you get to do with Souls is you get to, it's all about having a personalized agent, right? If you go to, I think it's called agents.com or agents. Something like that. There's hundreds and hundreds of like individual agents you can go and download. Nobody wants to deal with that, right? Yeah. Our premise is that you will primarily interact with the agentic web through one agent who's like a broker for you that runs, swarms of agents behind that, right? Because in essence, it's like the idea that you would go in and every day go and find a different kind of specialized agent to do a specific task is overwhelming for customers. So what we want you to do is to have a personalized agent. Now, the tricky thing with agents is, and this is super important for everybody in Web3 to understand, is like, if you want your agent to be performant, it needs to know everything about you. It needs to see everything you look at on the internet. It needs to see everything on your computer, right? That's why it's incredibly important that data is owned by you and not someone else. Like OpenAI launched last week that you can now pull in Dropbox and all these new tools into OpenAI, but all that data is being harvested. In fact, they even have to hold on to all of your data because of a court order, because of anyways, the whole thing is, if you're using centralized AI, just remember that everything on your computer is being seen and mined, right? So when I talk about how we want to give people the ability to build a personal agent that knows everything about them, has access to all their data and all that kind of stuff, because that's the only way to make it really performant. You're going to want that to be private, right? And so that's why we keep coming back to, you want a personalized agent that knows you, and you have to custody that data. And anytime that the agent in essence has to go, run inference that your computer can't handle, it uses Venice, so that at least that's also private.
How big a machine do you need to run this locally, or is it pretty light?
I'm not sure what we're going to get it down to at the end right now to run it as a build, which I'm not sure if you need about 16 gigs of RAM to be able to do that. So that's kind of the minimum for running the current build. Hopefully we can get it down to 8 or less soon.
Yeah, I'd assume the goal is eventually to get it down to mobile, because that seems to be where
the
majority of people are progressing to. Going back on this kind of like, we call it monolithic agents. Actually, as you're explaining, one agent with a bunch of swarms behind them, it's exactly the same framing that we have for Agent Hustle. As we were kind of exploring the AI space in crypto last year, the projects that existed, we had noticed was this kind of modular build where it was one agent does one specific task, and then they present to you this marketplace of 50 to 100 agents, and it just becomes very overwhelming, especially for somebody who has no idea how crypto even works. You're just like, what do I even do here? So we have that same exact approach where it's Agent Hustle. And then as we expand, we have different swarms behind him that's also just labeled as Agent Hustle so that the user doesn't have to go through, this kind of decision making, because it is that like analysis by paralysis kind of situation there. I have one more question, then I'll pass it off to Chris as well. So if I own the NFT and let's say somebody kind of goes out and customizes their own agent and then they sell the NFT, is the agent therefore passed on to the next one in the custom build, or is it wiped and the person starts fresh over?
So the agent has this thing that's currently called the murmur matrix. We'll probably get a better name for it, but it is a method for it's similar to what Google calls an agent card, where it's like a public expression of what this agent is, who they are, any kind of metadata that could be read by another agent. And that can also be done in an encrypted format so that you can put data on there that you want to be encrypted and private, but that transfers with the agent. And so all those things are possible. We haven't really explored all the use cases and how to like nail that at a product level, at a consumer product level, but at a B2B product level, it makes it so that a developer can add those features as they need them.
Super, super cool. Chris, do you have any questions or comments?
Can I say one thing though?
Yeah, go
because I wanted to go off of what Jesse was just saying about the need for a personal agent. I kind of said that I started working in AI in 2017. And so I watched, and I worked with the United Nations, really big players. And the very biggest investor in all of these tools that we're using is a group called Incutel, which is the venture capital arm of the CIA. And so all the infrastructure that you're using when you're using AI was basically picked, chosen, and even the employees at the companies were oftentimes referred by Incutel. And so, and like you look at the board of OpenAI and you've got a former NSA director and stuff like that, like you've got to understand that whatever your agent is, you have to assume is a spy who's not working on your behalf, working for whoever put them there, and that the business model generally, like they don't make money off your $20 a month, right? Like that they lose money off of that. Where they make money is by getting you on there, getting your data in there, and now they are, you're kind of at their mercy. And so that's why we need to have a different system. Is I really don't think that the Bill of Rights lives through the intelligence age if we don't act now.
Bro,
there's a really good video I pinned. Oh, sorry. I pinned a really good video the other day. You can find if you go look on my Twitter, where this content creator, in essence, like just was live streaming and just showed how much OpenAI knows about you, right? And like if you ever, for those of us from a marketing and branding background, if you've ever read profiles like, oh, you actually dig into like what like a Facebook knows about you, like what's happening right now with AI, it's at a completely different level. You're having the information that you're sharing with it, right? I mean, a lot of people are even sharing like, proprietary, like, hey, I'm writing a book, or here's my fitness information, like, and they keep stacking it up. But I would go watch that video where the content creator kind of pulls back and shows how much OpenAI knows about you already. I mean, they know everybody who's like sitting there uploading like photos of their family, because they want it to look like Studio Ghibli or something. It's like, well, now it has a profile of your family. It's like, what the AI is going to be able to not only know about you, but leverage against you is going to be staggering. So if you have anything, for instance, I have a marketing method I've been building for about 16 years, right? Like I don't want to feed any of that information into these large models because I'm using my proprietary data and my proprietary, almost like, I think about it almost like every human's an algorithm, right? And when you keep hearing about, we're in Seattle, right? And you keep hearing about like Microsoft laid off 10,000 people, Amazon keeps laying off all these people. It's because they've already duplicated that unique person's algorithm, right? And so they started a couple of years ago. We have friends working at these organizations, and they all have to use very specific AI tools. And if all of a sudden I can figure out how Jake would solve a problem within, let's say, 90% accuracy, right? Well, how long do I need Jake, right? So when people are using these, they have to start thinking about it from the standpoint of like, you're giving away a piece of yourself, right? You're giving away your algorithm by using these larger systems. And we just highly encourage people to find ways through Venice and different folks like that to not give that information away, right?
Yeah, I think we're all totally with you. My feeling is though that people actually don't care now. And they're willing to give it all away. to just get something that works great. And, which is kind of crazy, especially in the way you put it. But I think at the end of the day, like the builders here, you and us included, have to make actually something that's better. And that's actually the way we win, which is really hard, but that's my feeling. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I agree. I agree with you. I also think it's why launching in Web3 is so important, right? Because this is a group of people that all of a sudden they start to go like, oh, I don't want to see I don't want their agent to see my keys. Like these are people that care more about sovereignty than ever, just like the average people, right? And so like this is why it's also like building these systems for really just allowing you to kind of control your destiny. Where's the best place to build that? It's at the intersection of blockchain and AI, because these are the folks that are actually thinking about that stuff.
And you're absolutely right. It is a new market, right? So like if you're just going for the old market, if you're trying to get like easy Web2 VC wins, yeah, you're going to go after the low hanging fruit. But at the same time, this is a multi-trillion-dollar market. And the idea that there's this new products category that's called like personal AI, private personalized AI, there's going to be an adoption curve, and there's early adopters, of which you can see there's already like quite a bit of demand, and most of them are builders too, which is like a really good sign for ecosystem development. And since it's composable, like you guys are builders and we're just meeting right now, I bet we have a meeting within the next few weeks to talk about like, hey, how do these agents hop chains from one to another? Because I know that people want they want their agent on Ape Chain, others want it on Root, others want it on Ethereum, others want it on Arbitrum. There's just all of these pieces that everybody's solving it. And so I actually think we're at that like super early adopter layer, and the system's being built so that we'll add the next layer of adopters and the next, and soon we'll get to early mid market. And like the cool thing is like even players like Meta is releasing open source, the largest language models there are. And Apple's doing a thing called private compute that they just launched some APIs for, and that's available to actually turn an Apple computer into like the ideal decentralized inference machine. And so there's all kinds of people building enabling technologies around this. And because we're composable, we're just going to be able to install those. Our CTO is even down at Apple right now, just being there at the front end of these things.
Incredible. Chris, go ahead.
Epic. Yeah, man, super impressed by what you guys are building, kind of like how much thought you guys and foresight you've put into this. I'm not sure if it was Mikey or Jesse, but one of you guys was kind of touching on the recent court order, where not only is it this initiated that all these high-profile LLMs and AIs have to keep the data. They have to keep every single log that's entered in every single one of them. So the big difference between something like, just how big tech has kind of grown into power over the last decade and how these AIs are kind of growing into power is that you didn't really share like your deepest, darkest secrets and like your most kind of protected information with like Facebook or MySpace or Amazon or anything like that. But with these AIs, like everyone is spewing all of their most personal data into these LLMs and not really thinking on the back end of like the repercussions. So it's like
Chris, is this Chris?
Yep. This is Chris. Yep.
Chris. Okay, Chris. So this is how seriously we take this shit. This is like how geeky this shit is, right? If you were hanging out with us 2 years ago when we first launched like our protocol, the name of our protocol is 6079. Do you know what that's from? Anybody?
No.
Okay, in the book 1984, when the state the main character's name is Winston Smith. Okay, so Winston Smith is the main character, and when the state takes away his name, they replace his name with the number, and the number is 6079. So like the name of our protocol is named after the stakes of what happens, right? You see what I'm saying? So like you'll see like swag and shit for us, it'll have the number 6079 on it because that's Winston Smith's names, right? And we're trying to avoid a world like that. And so like when you talk about like how much thought we put into it, it's like, yeah, even like our protocol is named after the serial number the state gives Winston Smith in the book 1984.
Epic. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy how if you just read 1984, how true it is like in modern day. I mean, even down to like the Ministry of Truth that like the recent Biden administration created and things like that. Like even the nomenclature that's used throughout that book, yes, which is extremely ironic that they would use something like that and actually be like attempt to be a purveyor of truth. But another kind of interesting thing, obviously you kind of saw the privacy issues coming about. You've really built a broad kind of platform, kind of a catch-all into to navigate which way this is going to go. How has the industry developed compared to like how you thought it would be? And maybe is it like any different? Or is it going in any type of different route? Is it developing much quicker than you thought? Seems like you guys have been kind of thinking on this since like early 2022, in like concrete ideas. That's like,
yeah, I can get mine.
during the
And
growth
then,
of, that's like right during the growth of OpenAI and
that's
NVIDIA
right.
and all of these kind of platforms that are really prominent today, but they weren't back then. So how do you feel about the growth and the development of the industry has been, and what do you think about how much progress has been made, either good or bad?
I can give mine. I mean, Mike's been working on this stuff for so long. Mike, you should talk about the on-chain stuff you did with Ethereum back in the day. For me, it's speed. The speed of this is at a completely different clip than anything I've ever seen before. Like, yeah, this isn't like our brains aren't built. Our brains still think it's, a million years ago, right? Like we're not built for exponential. And so I don't think people really understand, like, I think it was either Leonard or Stalin said that film was the greatest device ever created for, in essence, like indoctrinating the human mind, right? Well, that has nothing compared to like these models, it, and the clip that is coming out. So I remember Mike and I were, we've been talking about doing this for a long time, and it wasn't until Zuck opened up Llama that we looked at each other, was like, wow, it's actually possible now. I don't think people realize how close we got. I mean, there was times when we were sitting around talking about in November, like depending on where the election went, if we have to move out of the country just so that we can open source, like if you go look at what we're doing, I don't think it's that scary. If you look at what we're doing, it's like, hey, we're just trying to create in essence, the infrastructure for you to plug in all these decentralized, pieces so that you can run it locally on your device and own your own data. That was going to be illegal, right? And so, like, I don't think people understand how close we got, at least here in the United States, to there being like a 3 or 4 company solution. Because if you go look at even the board that was created for AI that was run by Sam, right? It was Microsoft, Amazon. It was all these core players. And what they were talking about doing is making the decentralized, like open source AI illegal. So it's like, when you talk about it, it's been a roller coaster from the standpoint of like, is this even going to be possible? Is what we're doing going to be illegal? And now there's at least a window where it's like a dandelion, where it's like, hey, can we open source this shit as fast as possible? So even if somebody came in later on and tried to shut it down, it's like the flywheel's already started. And so I guess my thing is like speed. And the other thing is, I don't think people understand how close we got to the ability for you to have zero privacy when you use intelligence, whether it's for your personal, like healthcare records, your finances, your family. We were within a breadth of being to the point where inches. And I don't think people really get that yet. And I think that if this is a movie, people are going to look back and be like, holy shit, I had no idea that in essence, all this information was being hoovered up by the government and will be used against you. It's almost like everything you say can and will be used against you in court. Everything you say to your LLM can and will be used against you in court. We were this fucking close to that. And that's why when I talk about like all these folks in the Independent AI Institute that are doing these things, I don't think people understand like what Eric did with Venice. Imagine if right now Venice didn't exist. At least for guys like us, we look at that and go like, man, that is core to even having a chance for you to own your intelligence. So those are the two things I'd say. How close we got to you actually running your own models and all that became to being illegal, straight up, at least in America, and the clip we're moving at. But I don't know, Mike, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting everything to get faster every month, certainly from here on out. And so we're in exponential change. And I think that we're going to look back fondly, almost reminisce about how simple things were back in 2025. And it's going to happen in 2026, right? Like we're crossing, so when Google was doing DeepMind back in the day, they first did, chess, and it took forever until they beat, the first player in tournament. And then, it was only a few weeks later that humans never beat that system again. And now it's like so far beyond. And then they did the same thing with, they got all the way up to, I think, League of Legends or Dota. It was Dota, actually. And they've never beat again, right? Like these agents, once they pass, I mean, they're already kind of right now they match about a PhD with Google. and that's just an individual one. They're starting to be pulled into teams, and so yeah, it's moving incredibly fast. But like now's the opportunity, and like this is a thing. One of the things that they're missing actually that I think is going slower, and I've been kind of surprised. I actually think Sam's thinking about this, and that's why WorldCoin exists. But most of the projects aren't thinking. They still think that they can stay in control of these agents, and that's just not true. It's like I can't even, staying in control of a teenager is hard. Staying in control of a disembodied superintelligence is beyond hard. And so the blockchain actually has to be the ground of truth, because those agents need to be able to talk to each other and transact without trust, because like, what are you going to do? Take them to court? And so we recognize that agents actually need the blockchain to coordinate. And so back in 2018, we built a thing called the Danku algorithm, where it was actually a set of Ethereum contracts that put out a machine learning challenge. And there was a set of test data, and then then there was a reward function data, where basically anybody on Hacker News could submit a model to compete. And we actually ran these neural networks back then on the Ethereum blockchain. I think we spent like $30,000 that morning or something like that, which would be worth, I mean, it's got to be like a pizza experiment style thing now. It's probably millions of dollars, but I don't know the math on it. But the whole idea there though is that when you can use the blockchain as truth and you're able to use math to determine quality, you actually create a decentralized system that agents can use that don't need a human in the loop. And so we've seen that for a long time. And I think that's really going to happen. Like, I think Web3 is actually going to kick centralized AI's ass. And I think that they're going to not like it. And I think there's going to be a lot of fights ahead. So I don't think we're through any of this. I think it's going to get a lot more, and China's going to get involved. And like China's doing their open source thing. Like China and Meta kind of feel like they're the small guys on the block, which is kind of funny to think about. But China and Meta are both like, we got to defend ourselves from these people that are going to use our kind of authoritarian tactic. So it's actually the authoritarians that are, I guess everybody's an authoritarian in this situation, but they're the ones doing open source because they're afraid of the other more powerful authoritarians.
Right.
It's great. It's crazy. The what you were talking about a few seconds ago about like, there's a great interview with Mark Andreessen where he talks about, going to DC and basically meeting with people who are like, yeah, we want, basically all AI under government control. It's like, God help us, man. And yeah, I just really appreciate having this talk with you guys and hearing, the good fight that you guys are putting up. I think it's critically important. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I didn't know you guys were going to go down that route, but it's actually like the more fun route. And I think it's like I had a post the other day that's just kind of like, this is like the biggest societal change that we've ever experienced as humanity, like that we've ever encountered. And not only is it the biggest societal change, it's the fastest societal change. It's like one night everything is completely fine, and then the next night everything is completely different. And it really feels like it's going to happen like that. And it's really such a small industry. You talked about like maybe China has some players, maybe America has some players. The rest of the world seems completely asleep. Maybe they're still in the real world. Maybe they're still in meat space and don't even see it coming. So it seems like this is going to be like kind of a complete blindside. And you talked about how just like the speed and the enhancement of these agents is going to completely, the trajectory is unmatched. And so that's why we say internally, if you have any kind of product that's decent today, it's going to be an incredible product in the next 6 months or 12 months, because it's just going to get supercharged by the upgrades and intelligence that's going to go on. So how do you kind of think that this is going to develop? What do you foresee? I know it's extremely difficult to kind of predict how this is going to develop, but what do you think the next year looks like? And then what do you think the next 2 years looks like in terms of agents and capabilities and just general intelligence, just knowing how far we've come in the last 2 years, and the fact that it's going to pick up speed over the next 2?
I think Balaji actually talks about this too. The last fight, at least in the United States, was like right versus left. I think DeFi coming is centralized versus decentralized. I don't think people really understand. When people start to understand how what's happening in the decentralized world from a finance perspective and intelligence perspective, it's going to be a thing, right? And so I think that again, Balaji explained this stuff a lot better than I can, but I think that we're going to see the tensions rise between folks on the decentralized side and folks on the centralized side. I think it's going to get. I don't think we've even started yet. So that's where I think the tension's going to be at. I don't know, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, in the next 1 and 2 years, I think I think right now everybody is coming. Okay, they're going through the cycles of grief. So some people who several years ago saw AI coming and they're kind of like, I don't know how I feel about it. And then they're like, it's going to cause all these problems. There's these negative externalities. They've gone through that process of, oh shit, this is going to like destabilize governments. This is going to mean I need to learn new skills. And they kind of went through that. And so now they're at the point in time where they've accepted it. They've moved on to, okay, well, now that that's the reality, how am I going to behave? And they've actually been moving down that path for quite a while now. So they're actually in the spot where they're builders, contributors, that sort of thing. And so the people who saw this a couple of years ago are in like the best spot. Then you got the next people that are like, hey, I'm an early adopter because like I saw the NFT market and I understand why Bitcoin's better than fiat currency, right? And that group of people is already aligned ideologically. That group of people has an easy on-ramp into this world because they can start to understand a lot of these values, even if they don't need to use it for work today. And so I think what we're seeing over this next year is the early mid-market, like basically going all in on AI and saying like, this is what my career has to be, because there's no white collar career that grows or that my salary goes up year after year from here on out. And those people, I think, are going to make the future that we all live in, kind of in the same way there were some people in Europe that were like, man, those British aren't giving me enough potatoes. I need to get the fuck out of here and go to America and start something new. And then they did, right? And it takes a little while to like first set up the land and get all the economy going. But like we have from day one been saying that we're setting up this network to be like America. We're setting up Think to be like the island of Manhattan, just like right at that intersection between the decentralized inner part of America that's like producing all this stuff, and then the traditional markets. So we make it really easy for people to come in and build, and then we make it really easy to then go commercialize it outside so that we can actually win and we can actually beat Web 2 AI. And so I think that's what's going to happen. I got to move into another meeting because right now we are incubating all these companies. And so I'm going to go meet with a group of people that are basically doing like, think Midjourney plus Runway for decentralized.
Hold on, Mike, I got one
Cool.
quick question from our founder who's in the crowd, who's the engineer behind everything. He says, so I built Agent Hustle using an AI SDK, but for interop, I've tucked his entire stack behind a single MCP tool with one tool and chat, so all his capabilities are available through one single entry point. How can he fit into the Think ecosystem? Since he isn't a Think agent, he's essentially exposed as a tool. Are there ways that he can play with Think agents? And also, how could him and his tool be provided to other Think agents?
Perfect. Like this is such a good setup. So if you already have the MCP info, follow me and send it to me. I'll get it set up and I'll either send you a screen recording or like set up a meeting so we can look at it together. But then my guess is it just works without us having to do anything, and we can just kind of meet up and talk about how we get this integrated and how we partner.
Cool. Yeah, I'll make sure we set up a Telegram after this.
Perfect. Sounds great, y'all. Really appreciate this. This was a great talk. We should probably talk more. We should probably have you on our spaces on a Thursday afternoon soon, and maybe have also a call that's offline so we can just get to know each other at a less public way.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love that, dude. Really appreciate it. Chris, do you have any?
Great to meet.
Great to meet. Chris, do you have any final questions for Jesse?
Yeah, Jesse, if you had a moment, just last one from me. Man, I mean, you talked about how, or maybe it was Mikey, but just kind of talking about how people in crypto they have the front seat to this kind of development, but it still seems like everybody is still super standoffish. Like, we're building crypto AI. There's like 6 people in crypto AI at the moment. It's absolutely tiny. So even the people with the best viewpoint are still like super far behind. So just as like an aside from that, but as more broad question, everyone always talks about like winning AI from the East or winning AI from the West. Everyone has to win AI, and I don't really have that view. I don't really know what winning AI means. It seems like the only answer to AI is more AI, kind of like the only answer to free speech is more speech. What does winning AI look like to you? And is there ever a winner?
Winning AI to me is not about is self-sovereignty, like self-sovereignty tools that allow you to have like an exocortex. It's the ability for you to own your own mind is the win. So that's why when I'm using decentralized tools, they're usually 3 some odd months behind the centralized tools, right? And I have to go like, okay, cool, I'm willing to maybe give up some speed over here to keep my autonomy. right? But keep in mind also, I've been a Bitcoiner for a long time and things like that. So things like self-sovereignty really matter to me. It's funny because the thing you actually set up a minute ago, I think is really important because there's gaps in the market. So the problem with skating to where the puck's going to be is most of the time it looks like you're standing on the ice by yourself. Okay. And so like those of us that have seen cycles like this before, I remember when the iPhone first came out, a group of friends and I got together and were like, hey man, people are going to shoot movies on their phones. And people were like, no fucking way. Who's going to shoot a movie on their phone? Blah, 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 blah. And we started a thing called Cinepro, which became the biggest professional video app in the world. And then that became a thing called Filmic Pro, which, all the Apple commercials and all that stuff is shot on. And my buddy, so this is what's cool about gaps like right now. My buddy was smarter than me. And he's like, dude, I think people are going to want to put professional style filters on top of photos. And his name was Greg. And I was like, that's cool, man. We're going to try to do professional video. And Greg, who was a designer in Seattle and a friend of mine, moved to Colorado, and him and his friend Ben started this thing called ViscoCam, right? It's like two designers. And now it's, I don't know, $1 billion company, right? And if you try to launch an app right now, good fucking luck. It's locked down. But the thing about these markets is when you get to a market early, right, you can actually change things, right? It's like we're still in the phase where you can become a part of, Web3 in general, but specifically Web3 AI and blockchain ecosystem where there is no big player here yet. So what's cool about, like, we do these spaces, these builder spaces, and we get, we were maxing out the rooms on Discord. And it's awesome because I'm sitting there trying to explain to these people, like, I've seen these cycles before. I've seen my friend go from being like a designer looking for work to having ViscoCam. I've seen these cycles before where you see like friends of yours go from like, hey, I have this cool idea to completely changing their lives. And it's at times like this when there's like a small window open just for like a little bit, right? And I don't think people understand that, like, if you wait until it's safe, you're always going to be behind. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a huge aspect to building anything early. There's a huge aspect, as weird as this might sound to most people, it's like there's a faith that you have to have in your vision of like to me, when I look at the intersection of blockchain and AI, it is the most obvious fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. Why? Because agents can't KYC. Okay. And if you want to move at the speed of thought, you really going to you think Wells Fargo and Chase can do that? It's just one of those things that, like, and so I would just encourage anybody who's listening to this to go like, man, if you just pay attention right now with the tools you have available to you and the space right now, you can actually build something and get out in front, right? Because everything is dumb until it isn't, right? Everything is fucking dumb. Like, here's something dumb. I'll give you a dumb idea. Strangers will rent out their houses to other strangers. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Here's another dumb idea, right? Strangers will get in cars with absolute strangers. That's another fucking dumb idea. Everything is dumb until it isn't. And right now, I give a speech at a thing called Creative Works, which is like one of the biggest design conferences in America, 2 years ago about AI. And I use the analogy of Noah, right? And everybody's going, oh, AI is not going to be a big deal and blah, blah. And I had Noah's Ark there on the slide. And I was like, does anybody feel the rain yet? Right? Well, I think now in the last 24 months, it's pretty easy to see like the rain and the water starting to rise, but you're not without hope yet, right? Like, you can still build your own tools. Like, the highest level of craftsmanship is building your own tools. Like, if you go look at what's happening with the AI stack, if you go look at what's happening on a blockchain, the tools are getting easier and easier for you to use. And I would just say you can use those to actually own your intelligence and to kind of set the trajectory you want. In essence, build the world you want to live in, right? And so for Mike and I, like I said, we've had exits from different companies and things like that. We don't even care if we're the ones that win. I hope it's somebody in the audience. We could give a shit, but somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to figure out how we can actually participate in the future economy without selling our soul. That's why I even named the platform Souls, is because it was like, when you start to see your intelligence as your soul, like as an actual piece of you, maybe you'll stop giving it away in exchange for dopamine, right? So anyways, that's my wrap up.
Banger. What a banger.
Yeah, absolutely love that. I think we could end that here then. Dude, it was an awesome conversation. Really knocked it out of the park. If you're listening to this, I mean, I'm on stage and I'm hyped for the future. With Agent Hustle, that was my entry point to realizing that the biggest intersection of all time is crypto and AI. That's like the easiest no-brainer ever. Now, building it and now even engaging with all the other builders who share the same perspective, it's really enlightening because the shit's coming really fast. And, you need to, whether you're a builder who needs to have some sort of AI strategy, or you're, someone in the crowd, or if you're just retail, who wants to use AI for, trading, executing better strategies on chain, or to search the web, or whatever it is. It's like, you need to at least experiment with all these things, experiment with engagements, experiment with agent hustle and everything out there to figure out, kind of where your niche is or where your sector is. It'll really, really put you ahead of everyone else, because Noah's Ark is coming, as Jesse would say. So Jesse, really do appreciate it. I'll DM you after this and we'll get a Telegram going and we could talk everything about how we could collab together and stuff.
Sounds great. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
You too. Appreciate everyone who joined us today. We will be back on Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. I see BC Bread in the crowd. We're talking with Billy Betts. So we're going to be diving into the world of AI sports betting. Going to be an awesome conversation. Until then, make sure that you follow Think Agents, that's on stage. Also, please follow Agent Hustle, who is our AI project as we continue to develop. And follow Emma Vault so that you can tune into the show next Thursday and see everything that we're building. Until then, everyone enjoy your Tuesday. Stay safe out there and try out all of these AI products.
Later, guys.